by President Fuerte. The two could move about the city of Estero and live their lives however they pleased when they weren't called to assist the president with his crimes. But if they crossed the border into another country or waded more than a few dozen feet into the ocean, Fuerte's guards would descend upon them like a sudden, hard rain, immediate and all-encompassing. They'd lose what freedom they had. In exchange for their abiding by these rules and staying inside the boundaries, Fuerte had kept the Stones and the other bad parents from being put in jail for their past crimes. When Greta's cell phone rang, she turned her back to the library and answered it in a hushed tone. But Cabot could just barely make out her mother's response. "Now is not a good time. We'll come to you. After, you know." Greta listened for several seconds, then reiterated firmly, "We'll come to you." She hung up and leaned toward Jack. "She sounds suspicious, but she can't come here." Greta glanced over her shoulder at Cabot. Cabot swiftly dropped her gaze. Who was calling? Cabot had no idea. Greta had become extremely secretive. Both parents were so different now. Was it the new environment that had changed them? The loft and the home office, the phones and the appointments, versus the beach cabins with no schedule to follow or places to go. Was this how they'd been before Cabot had come along? Her parents were strangers. Cabot sighed and pulled out her phone. Her stomach twisted as she scrolled through notification after notification from the other group. Unopened. She could read the first 2 lines of each text message without clicking on them. There were group text messages that included the other 4 forgotten ones, plus Lotta, Elena Golden, and the librarian. But the librarian hadn't replied or communicated privately with Cabot at all yet, and that made her nervous. Was her hero mad at her for ditching the team during this crucial time? Cabot cringed as a days-long headache pounded behind her eyes. There were also a few individual text messages. The first from Elena, reaching out to make sure Cabot was okay. The next was from Brix, begging her to come back. And there were a couple from Seven, whose reaction after her shocking departure seemed more emotional than she'd expected. The 2 of them had grown closer in the past weeks, she supposed. They'd been a team on the treacherous journey from the hideout to Estero, and they'd bonded during the time they were held prisoner together at Martine and Troy's mansion. Seven had been present when Cabot made the decision to go with her parents. He hadn't tried to stop her, but she'd watched him turn and walk away. Head bowed. The short, unfinished text previews provided some comfort. Her friends missed her. But she didn't want to read the full texts. Not yet. Because she wasn't sure how she was feeling about everything, and she didn't want to start crying and have her parents wonder what she was crying about. She had to keep her friend's presence in Estero a secret no matter what. Plus, she wasn't quite ready for her friends to know she'd read their texts yet, because it could trigger an avalanche of new ones. Cabot wasn't prepared for that. She searched through her phone settings. Lotta had mentioned in one of their training sessions down in the lower tunnels that they could configure their messages so the sender couldn't tell if they'd read them. None of the group had actually done that as far as Cabot knew. The training had been overwhelming for the others, but Cabot had retained the information. She found the toggle switch and tapped it, and felt instantly better. Having people know if she'd read their messages felt as intrusive as when the kids nosed around her tree perch back home. Cabot was intensely private, even though she didn't quite respect other people's privacy the way she wanted hers respected. It had been tricky explaining to her parents how she'd come to be in possession of a cell phone, but she'd anticipated the question and was ready for it. She'd also kept up the lie that only she and Seven had come to Estero. She might love her parents and want to be with them, but she didn't trust them.